Hi everyone, welcome back to OC. Now today we're going to be looking at conditioning the birds. So obviously with the turn of the new year, we're all quite excited and looking forward to the breeding season that will start in a few months. For the start of that for me, we'll be pairing up at the beginning of April, and the canaries will be slightly earlier to get them bonded and all fine in time for when they need to be doing the feeding duties. So the plan is today that we're going to be looking at how we're going to condition the birds and the steps to take. So we're going to be looking at the food, we're going to be looking at how we're going to house them, and then how we're going to be separating them out accordingly to how we need to basically do it to condition them. And it's going to be different for the show birds for compared to the other birds that are already out in the flights, or the red poles here that aren't going to the shows. And it's going to be interesting to see how that goes on. Now obviously it's a bit early yet for us to be trying whacking everything up and trying to condition them quick. We've got a few months, so I'm not going to be rushing it, and it's not a process you want to rush. You want to be building the birds up to it. So to begin with, it's going to be at the end of January. Everything that's not a show bird will be going out into the flight. For the show birds, well, there's one show that we've got left just after January, so that's I think 6th of Feb, and that's the All British I want to say Walsall. So we've got the All British there, but that's only going to be the red poles there. We've got the greenies, and it's going to be 2 bullfinches as well, and a northern bully. So everything else is going to be going out in the flights, both these flights here and the other flights. So that's going to be the red pole cocks, the hens. All the green finches are already outside, which we're not showing. The canaries are all outside. So what we need to do is then separate them at the end of the month and give them realistically 2.5 to 3 months of simply just keeping them separate, getting them fit, getting them into the condition we need them to be in for breeding. So it's always end up where you've got cocks in one flight and hens in another. So for the canaries, we're going for 7 pairs of canaries, so there's 14 birds there plus a few spares. Call it 10 cocks and 10 hens there. They're going to be separate, so 10 cocks in one flight, 10 hens in the other. Maybe we'll have them in here a little later on, so we might leave these, we'll take the dividers out of these cages and we'll have cocks and hens in one or the other, and we'll condition them that way. For the red poles, last year we had them in double breeders in here for them at the condition, and it worked and it was fine. However, I do think what I might do to really make sure they're all right, especially those that we've shown, is we're going to put them in the new flights that we built this year. So they'll go in there, and we'll have cocks and hens in there across probably, we're going for 7 pairs. We'll keep a cock and probably 2 hens spare. So we'll do like 4 cocks and 4 cocks in a flight each, and then 4, 5 hens and 5 hens in a flight each. And then it means that they're not all getting in each other's way, they're not fighting too much, and there's enough room for them to get fit. And then obviously as it comes with the flights as well and getting the birds fit, you want to make sure you've got a variety of perches, so you keep in their feet well exercised. So you don't want the same size perches and they're just sat like that all day. You want them to be moving their feet like this to different sized perches, but you also want to be having different levels of perches. So you want to be having some lower down to the ground and some higher up, so the birds flying up is better for them fitness wise than it is side to side. So by having them in large flights, I'll be putting the water and the food down low, so they have to go down for it. It means they have to fly back up to get to the perches, and that's going to be really good exercise for them to get them fit like that. We'll probably be having a few birds in here, so what we might do is our bullfinch hybrid pairs. We'll have bullfinch red pole pair, bullfinch Norwich, and then we'll probably do the Siberian bully greenie pair. What we'll do is might give them a row each, because I want to make sure that we don't go and throw them out in the flight immediately. And we do want to make sure that they're still getting fit and they're still bonded and there's no problems there. So that's probably likely what will happen there. So that's how we're going to be dividing them up to get them fit. At twice we'll probably use we might keep the twice together, actually. Speaking to a few people, but we'll put them in a large cage so that they have all that exercise and they're going to get fit together as a pair. And then for that special pair of birds, well, they're still not here yet. Hopefully you won't see them next weekend. possibly the weekend after. We'll see how it all happens. Might be getting them at some point over the next few weeks, I hope, fingers crossed. But we're going to be doing them slightly differently, and I'm not going to give too many hints, but it's been what I've been told to do is put the hen in one place a few weeks prior to the cock, so she's the dominant bird and she's fit. But I'm not going to tell you exactly what they are, but you might be able to work it out from a recent video we uploaded. But anyway, that's the clue from that. So of course we're always trying to mimic nature as well, and try and revert the birds in the breeding season back to that sort of natural behaviour, and we're trying to get them to and supplement everything to make it as natural as possible to hopefully have the best results. Now, it does depend on each bird. So for the canaries, to be honest, they're that domesticated anyway and easy to breed. I'm not going to be talking about that much because there's not much you revert back to anymore. You know, if a canary in the wild fed on some sort of native fruit to the Canary Islands, well, in captivity we've got egg food which does that just fine in conditioning seed, and that is something we give all the natives is egg food and conditioning seed, and it's really good for them, helps get them fit and that increase in protein, but also we're looking at how can we bring the nature into what we do to work best, I guess. So for the bullfinches, well, that's going to be fruit buds off fruit trees. So if you know there's some fruit trees somewhere, you've got fruit trees in your garden, I'll snip some buds off and I'll be putting them in for the bullfinches. You find naturally that bullfinches will hang around orchards and areas where fruit is plentiful, and in winter you'll find that they're eating rowan berries off trees and stuff like that, and it's going to be feeding fruit to the bullfinches that I think is hopefully going to really help them, and that's going to be both the straight pair native bullies we're doing and the 3 bullfinch mule hybrid pairs. So it's going to be 4 pairs that are going to be getting that. Don't get me wrong, the red poll with the bullfinch hen, he might eat some, and that's fine. You know, it's nothing bad for them. Of course, it doesn't have a brilliant effect on a bullfinch, but the opposite on a red poll, it's not like that. But that's how it's going to be, and hopefully it works out quite nicely. Now, something that John O'Malley had mentioned in the Zoom room episode we did with him in the summer is giving raspberries to bullfinches. It helps bring them into breeding condition. So I'm thinking if I can get some sort of like concentrated raspberry juice, like you'd get in a supermarket, you can then dilute it down into a drink. Well, actually, that'd be perfect to put into the drinkers to help with the bullfinches. But I will also be getting raspberries off of bushes or from the shop, from Tesco, and we'll be doing that. And then it's other things as well. So maybe we try a blackcurrant juice or something like that, and then just see if it works. Hopefully it does, but it's the fruits for the bullies that really make a difference. If you're breeding crossbills, well, giving them pine nuts, especially fresh ones, does help them come into condition. I gave them, when I bred them 2 years ago, we did that and it did work. Last year it didn't work, but it wasn't based on the fact that they weren't eating the pine nuts. They just weren't bothered to breed the 2 pairs that we had. Unlucky, but it does happen. But again, I think the main thing here is going to be conditioning seed and egg food. I've done videos on my egg food mix. It'll be somewhere up here, and you can see that. And that's a conditioned egg food mixture. I make a different mixture based on whether we're conditioning the birds or we're rearing youngsters, because it's got slightly different components that will either bring the birds into condition or be better for feeding the youngsters. So it's slightly different. So make sure you watch that after this video, and I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. So that's going to be something useful, hopefully for you, and that's mainly how the diet's going to look of these birds. For some birds you'll need to be adding mealworms, live food. So if you're breeding hawfinches, you're breeding yellowhammers, you're breeding chaffies, brambles, live food does help bring them into condition as well. So a big factor on whether a bird is in condition or not, and whether it's being brought into condition or not, is the lighting. So as you can see in here, we've got natural light coming through, but in this side of the shed, well, it's all LED lit. Don't get me wrong, it gets that natural light, but it's not as open as are these cages here through this roof. The flights are obviously going to be getting a lot of natural light, and then the other shed, well, we're going to be using that for the young birds, so nothing's really going to be conditioned in that shed. But it's ideal because the light is going going to be bringing them into condition. It's all of the I think it's vitamin D from sunlight anyway, which the body makes through being exposed to sunlight, so that's great for them. But also is the lighting hours, and this is something that I've been asked about a lot, so I thought I'd cover it in here, is how lighting hours work with birds and whether it's breeding season or not based on the hours of light. So as you can see in here, we've got LED strip lights that go all the way through. I keep them on a natural daylight cycle, so what it does is enhances the natural light in the darker areas like in here, rather than gives them light when it shouldn't be light. So we're going to be sticking to the natural daylight cycle, and realistically most of the birds will be coming into condition from April towards May. Obviously some birds are going to be later, so it's going to be red polls that are realistically going to be mid-April to the start of May. Bullfinches, I think in captivity it's not unusual to expect them to be in condition by April, sort of mid-April. Greenies will be in condition by then. The greenies will be breeding from April, and it's going to be interesting to see how we get on there. But it's the increase in daylight that does it, and it's a slow increase, it's a gradual increase. So it's important that you do expose your birds to the natural daylight as well, and you try and keep them on that natural daylight cycle. Because if you do end up where you whack the daylight up from, it's currently probably what, 8 hours of daylight at this time of year, or so, maybe 9. If you suddenly whack that up to 14 hours of daylight, it's going to bring the birds in condition, but it's going to be sudden, so the birds aren't going to be built up for it. But it's also going to mean that you've still got the cold temperatures of the night, whilst the birds think it's it's summer for breeding season. So try and stick to a natural daylight cycle as much as possible if you're breeding native birds. I know canary men do generally have them on a daylight cycle slightly earlier, so that the birds are bred and molted out by the time come the shows, from probably October to December mainly. Whereas obviously with native birds, I'm trying to keep them as natural as possible on the natural light. So if we do put them out in the flights like they will be doing for some of them to breed, I don't want that to change it, and suddenly we've gone from having them, let's say 12 hours of daylight in the shed come that time, to then 10 hours of daylight outside in the flights, because then suddenly they're going to think, right, it's the end of the breeding season, molt, and then you end up with problems. So just try and stick to that where you can as much as possible if you're breeding your native birds. So as I did say earlier, it's going to be looking at the start of April for the native birds. For the canaries, well, it's about mid-March sort of time. I'm trying to get them done slightly earlier. That's what we did last year, is to try and, if there's any problems with a canary cock having a go at the hen, we've got time to fix that before the natives start breeding. And then when we do need them as fosters, I'm trying to get it in sync with when the natives will be going down, because obviously we need to use the canaries, which are here for the main purpose of feeders. So hopefully it should be all right doing that, and it goes all right. And obviously what we want to do as well is breeding some youngsters off of it, ideally each pair of feeders. I'd like to try and get a round out of them first and then use them for their feeding abilities, rather than just completely feeders throughout the whole season, because then that means that we've got youngsters for next year, we've got plenty of birds to sort through, and then we're going to be able to develop a good stud of feeders, which is ideally what we do need when we're doing things like hybrids, mules, anything that's got a Norwich hen with it. She's unlikely to rear, so we want to make sure that we've got feeders that will do that. And then if we've got something that's being picky, a red poll that's being picky, won't feed the youngsters because they're the wrong colour as such, rather than, we've had it before where I've had a nest of normals and there've been an Isabel in the nest and they don't feed the Isabel because it's a bright white chick rather than these darker brown chicks. It does happen, so it's something as simple as that. I want to make sure the feeders are available as soon as I need them to take over if it's needed. So that covers pretty much everything with conditioning. When are we going to start conditioning? For most of the birds, we're going to be starting introducing a bit of maybe a finger drawer a week of some conditioning seed or some germinated seed or some egg food, and it's going to be mainly like that. For the show birds, we're going to have to leave it slightly later, because I don't want them I don't want to be offering them seeds that they need to get fit when I'm trying to still keep the size and the weight on them for the shows. Obviously I don't overdo the weight on them, or try not to at least, but it can happen, and I just don't want to be confusing them as much. So we're going to be leaving them slightly later, but then they'll join the rest of the birds out in the flights there. Also, I'd just like to show you, we have got a bit of something here, which is a camera for filming the birds with. Obviously I'm not filming that from now, this is from my phone, and that's how I've generally always filmed my videos, but having a camera like this means that I can take better HD shots, and just a lot better quality photos and videos for the channel. So we've got this now, it's going to be useful, and I've already got some cracking shots of bullfinches, of red poles, some greenies and stuff like that, so it's going to be really good, and that's what the shots of the birds from now on will be taken on this, so you've got a good quality thing there. And then finally, I'd just like to show you as well, we've basically, from it being Christmas, I've been keeping an eye out on Facebook Marketplace for any good deals of things that can be useful for the birds, and that's mainly going to be cover for the nest sites. Obviously come Christmas, or come just after Christmas, everyone's taking the Christmas trees down, so well, there's loads of Christmas trees available, whether it be live ones or whether it be fake ones, they are useful. So I would say be cautious with live ones, because they can be covered in resin that makes them last longer and seem more green, which can harm the birds. So unless you know you've got one that's not been sprayed with resin, I'd ideally tell you to stick to fake ones. But it's like, I've picked up a fake one, it's a 7-footer or 6-footer, really good quality, used only this year. The lady was getting rid of it, she didn't want it because she didn't want to store it, so she gave it me, and I've got a free, essentially brand new fake Christmas tree. It's brilliant, and it's going to do exactly what I need it to for the breeding season, so really useful doing that. So I definitely recommend you keep an eye out, or maybe advertise on some local groups to you on Facebook that you're after a Christmas tree, a fake one or a real one, and it's super easy to use and have for the breeding season. That's all the cover that you're going to need, is buying a Christmas tree like that. So then obviously we're in about the last month of show season now. We've got the Staffordshire, which I've just sent my my forms off to on the 16th of this month, so that's going to be a good show. Obviously it's Staffordshire British Bird and Mule Club, so I'm taking the red poles, I'll be taking some bullies, I'll be taking some greenies, and a few other things there as well to show. So we've got 16 birds in there rather than the 23 that we took to the Lancashire. Then in, I think it's the 30th of Jan, we've got Nantwich, and then the 6th of February we've got the All British. So that's the 3 last shows of this side of the breeding season for the native birds. So hopefully I'll see you there, and I'll leave a link in the description to the entry form and the catalogue, show thing that's got all the numbers in and what you need. So if you do want to enter the Staffordshire show, the link's in the description for that, and it'd be nice to see you there and see a good turnout like we had at the Lancashire, obviously. And then finally, I've been contacted by a guy who's now sort of reopening the Scottish National show. So I think there's going to be canaries there, a variety of canaries, and it should be a really good show, and that's in December of this year. I'll be bringing you more updates on that in the future, just giving you a quick let you know sort of thing, and I'll leave a link to that as well in the description. So the Scottish National show in December, it'll be good, and I'd like to be up there. Fingers crossed I'll be able to do that, and it would be nice. So anyway, that's it from me, guys. So thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, please subscribe down below, smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next video.